All right, in this video we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula. Now you've seen the quadratic formula before. It might have been a while, so let's review it. The quadratic formula we use to find the values for x in a quadratic equation when it's set equal to 0. And that quadratic formula that we use is what we have here. It's opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of that's divided by 2a. Now if you're wondering what's all this a, b, and c about, remember that's from standard form. In standard form, the coefficients are ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, today specifically from the quadratic formula, we are just going to be looking at the piece underneath the square root, the b squared minus 4ac. That part of the quadratic formula, we call that the discriminant. And that's going to tell us some things about the graph. Here's what it tells us. If we take b squared minus 4ac and we get a positive answer, meaning it's greater than 0, that means that there's going to be two real solutions. And if we have b squared minus 4ac and we get exactly 0, that means that we only have one real solution. And if we get b squared minus 4ac and we get a negative number, so we get a number less than 0, well, in that case, we're going to have what's called an imaginary number. Remember, we learned about that in our previous lesson. And that is a non-real solution. So we would say that there would be two non-real solutions. Or we could say 0 real solutions. It means the same thing. But that's what the discriminant tells us. The discriminant tells us how many solutions there's going to be. Now, graphically, if you're wondering what does all this mean with 1 real solutions, 2 real solutions, or no real solutions, if we have a parabola that intersects the x-axis, that would have 2 real solutions. So that's where b squared minus 4ac would be positive. The graph would look something like that. What does it look like if we have 1 real solution? Well, that would be where the only point where the parabola touches the x-axis would be at the vertex there. I know it wasn't very good. There we go. A little better. And if there's no solutions, no real solutions, that'd be a parabola that doesn't intersect the x-axis at all. It's still a parabola, it just doesn't have any real solutions. It doesn't have any real x-intercepts. All right, so let's look at this first example. 16x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals 0. Before we start, always make sure it's equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, take care of that first. And again, we're just doing the b squared minus 4ac. We're not even doing the square root, so don't even include a square root here. We're just doing the b squared minus 4ac. That's the discriminant. So in this case, b is 8. So 8 squared is 64. That'll be minus 4 times my a value, which is 16, times my c value, which is 1. And what I would do is I would just type all of this in your calculator all at once. And when you do that, you would get exactly 0 as your answer, which means there is one real solution. That's what it's asking for. It's asking for what types of solutions does the equation have? It has one real solution. The 0 is not the solution. It just tells us the 0 indicates that there's one real solution for the answer. And we're going to see how that comes into play more with our next part of this lesson that we'll talk about in the next video. All right, so why don't you guys try this next one on your own and see what you get for your answer. All right, let's see how you did. So we're going to do b squared minus 4ac. So in this case, b is a negative 5. Now notice what I'm doing here. It's very important that you either do negative 5 squared, or I like to do in my head, I just like to square negative 5 because I know negative 5 squared is a positive 25. But if you type that in wrong in your calculator and you don't put the negative in the parentheses, your calculator is going to think that it's just the 5 getting squared and not the negative. So it's going to give you the wrong answer. So I would try to square as much of this as you can in your head without doing it on your calculator. All right, so -5, when you square that, like I said, is a positive 25. Now the rest of this I'm not going to do in my head. So it'll be -4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 6. And then that would equal, again, just type that in exactly as you see it on your calculator, and you get -23 as your answer. So remember, if you have a negative discriminant, that means that there are two non-real solutions. So that's what a negative answer indicates for us. So again, we're just trying to figure out the number of real solutions. Let's make this a little bit challenging. Let's look at this next one. It says, what values of b will cause a quadratic to have one solution? So we're trying to find the value for, we're trying to find the value for b here. So we know a and c, so what I can do is I can say, well, b squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 18. Now, if it has one solution, what does that mean? If it has one solution, that means it's going to be equal to 0. So I'm going to set b squared minus 4ac in this case. B squared minus 4 times 2 times 18. I'm going to set that equal to 0 and solve this now for b. Now I would type in -4 times 2 times 18 on my calculator. When you do that, you get 144. -144 is your answer. Equals 0. Now I'd add that to both sides and I get b squared equals 144. Now when you take the square root of both sides, remember you're going to get two solutions. Because the square root of 144, yes, that's 12, and 12 squared is 144, but -12 squared is also 144. So the values for b that would make it so we would have only one solution would be 12 or -12, which you could write like this, or we could list it out as individual values. I would accept either one as your answer. All right, let's apply this to a story problem here. It says Rachel's about to serve and tosses a tennis ball straight up into the air. The height of the ball in meters at time t is given by that equation. And it says, will the ball reach a height of 4 meters? So t is their time, it's not your height. We don't put 4 in for t. Okay, it's not saying what's the height after 4 seconds. It's saying, will the ball reach a height of 4 meters? So here's how we're going to do that. So we have that formula, -5t squared plus 5t plus 2. I want to see, will that ball reach a height of 4 meters? So will it equal 4? I don't know. But here's what I do know. What I do know is in order for me to do anything with the quadratic formula, including the discriminant, I need to get it equal to 0. Remember we said that at the beginning, everything so far has already been equal to 0, but this one is not. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from both sides. So now I have it equal to 0. Now the discriminant, what that's going to tell me is, will it reach a height of 4 meters? I'm going to look at the discriminant now to see if the discriminant will give me a value that's equal to 0 or not. And so when I do that, the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, b is 5, so I'm going to write it as 25, minus 4 times a, which is -5, times c, which is -2. And if I type all that in my calculator, I get -15. And -15 is not equal to 0. Okay, that's negative, so it does not hit the x-axis, does not reach what we wanted it to. So in order for this to have worked out, we would have had to have an answer of 0 or more. And so this would be no, it does not reach a height of 4 meters. All right, so that is an introduction to the quadratic formula, specifically the discriminant and how we use the discriminant to find the number of solutions a quadratic will have.